Okay, Tracy, go ahead.
Thank you all for being here. We appreciate you taking the time to come and join us for this brief presentation. Go ahead, next slide. So Mi Futuro, many of you are familiar with this at this point, probably have been to a few of these presentations, was created by Musetta, and the main goals are to promote mental health and wellness among youth, inspire youth to pursue behavioral and primary healthcare careers, support underrepresented and disadvantaged youth to pursue health careers, to strategically develop a more culturally and linguistically competent healthcare workforce so people can have physicians and healthcare providers and members of the healthcare team who look like them and who speak their language. And encourage total health by advocating higher educational attainment, a key social determinant of health. I am Tracy Crenard. I am a family medicine resident in the community. I was born and raised here. I'm a doctor, and I'm a first generation college graduate. Now we're going to talk about heart math.
All right, we're going to shift and take charge and find confidence with stress. The first step is taking charge. If you want to shift your response to stress to have more capacity for endurance, you have to be able to take charge with your body. So the first step to take charge with your body is what we call a heart-focused breath. The reason why we start with a heart-focused breath is because your heart has a unique nervous system that communicates more to your brain than your brain does to your heart. In response to stress, the instinct of our brain is to shut down in portions. Because of that, our stress response is to narrow our focus and not take in all the information around us. That decreases our response to stress in performance and endurance. Don't do that. So when you can come to a place where you can shift your brain to be alert and calm, your brain starts working at its full capacity. So to shift from just alert to alert and calm, start with heart-focused breath. Find your heart, and then I want you to imagine breathing 5 slow breaths into your heart area. This automatically shifts your body energy to support your mind. 3 more breaths. 3, 4. Okay, take 1 more breath and then come back to me. We're going to move to the second step, find confidence. When your mind strengthens your whole body, that changes your heart rhythm from chaotic, which is common in stress, to smooth and strong. When your heart rhythm is smooth and strong, this affects your whole body's ability to endure. It increases your endurance with stress. Let me teach you how to do that. Find your brain, and I want you to focus your brain on an image that is positive and brings you positive emotions. Emotions like happy, admiration, belief. It might be an image that's a memory, a person, or something to come, like a performance, such as a basketball game. Athletes use this technique to increase their performance and endurance in training and in competition. But you can use this every day in your everyday experiences of stress. Once you have your picture, I want your body to follow your positive image. When we are stressed, we lose our boundaries and definition physically. So find your definition, find that distinction. Let yourself become more real along with that image. Now come back to your picture. Let's combine take charge and find confidence. So first, find your heart. Second, find your picture. And now I want you to breathe your picture into your heart area for a count of 5. Okay, one last breath. Come back into your environment. You should be in a more alert and calm state. This is a skill of take charge, find confidence that you can take anywhere you go to take charge of any stress circumstance. Take charge, find your confidence.
Those of you who have been here before have seen this flow sheet before. Today, we're going to be over on the right-hand side. And I am on that note, I'm very pleased to introduce Maria Zavala, LCSW. She's a licensed clinical social worker at Kaiser Hospital and in private practice in the community.
Thank you, Tracy, for the introduction. And first, I wanted to give a thank you to Mi Futuro program and staff for this opportunity to continue to connect with students in hopes to advocate for more in the field of medical social work specifically, and just in general, any future education. Today, I want to be able to share with you the career path for a medical social worker up into licensure, if that's what people decide that they want to do. And I'll talk about the differences and why it would benefit to do that. And I also want to interweave my own career path and how I got there, which obviously includes what inspires me, and then just give a picture of what a day in the life of a social worker looks like, although it is always changing and very interesting. And then what you can do where you're at right now, I'm assuming high school or the JC, to continue to strive and move forward in life toward the career path if this is the chosen one for you. So like Tracy said, my name is Maria Zavala. I was born in Mexico and immigrated with my family at a very young age, originally from the state of Nayarit. And we ended up in the Central Valley. Not sure if anybody's aware of Kern County, Bakersfield area. So that's where I did my schooling. I had 4 siblings. I am the youngest of 4. And what I do remember at a very young age is that my parents were very involved with migrant education. And even though they really couldn't help with guiding us toward higher ed, they knew that education was a key to our future career path success, or just, life successes overall. So early on, I knew I had to stay involved in school. There was a lot of meshing of traditions and cultures. But, overall, school was a key factor in a lot of what we faced as a family. My brothers and sisters were eventually all followed a path in higher ed through the JC, my brothers and my sister at a local CSU. I was the first one in my family to go straight from high school to UC. And I actually got an opportunity to study at UC Santa Barbara. So went there, and I have to admit that I would have never thought that I would have been a social worker at that time in my life. At that time in my life, what I wanted to do was to get out of the small town living, live in a city, change the world. So I did have that little inkling that was social worky, and try to, through my well-being, help others to do better. But for whatever reason, I thought it would be more along business or finances. So I had that dream when I first started UC Santa Barbara. So at UC Santa Barbara, going away to college, which I know has been limited with our current COVID situation, I think I really was able to find my true path and my true life. And I just have to warn that my career path was very much influenced by my family and by life. And it defined my career path. It defined me. And it's a pleasure to be able to do what I truly love day in and day out. So at UC Santa Barbara, I started, like I said, a communications and finance major. Eventually, life experiences moved me toward more of a global and international with culture and ideology studies. I honestly took the experience at 150%. It was the first time that I was out of my home. It was the first time that I was able to connect with other students with similar backgrounds outside of my really, really small town. Um, and it was the first time that I had really thorough thoughts about future discussions, about possibilities. And honestly, higher ed did that to me. Having these key conversations really opened up my mentality to understand that with hard work, dedication, and education, I could achieve more than I could imagine. It was there that I was introduced through work study programs and through, here we have MECHA, which is very prevalent in high schools. That's JC, great organization. But at UC Santa Barbara, it was called El Concilio. And so we had un Centro de la Raza. And so I was able to connect there with people from variety, Central Americans and, people from Southern California. So like I said, it really impacted opening my career path. I started working in programs around social services, and that was, I think, my first introduction to the social work field. UC Santa Barbara does not have a social work bachelor degree, so I proceeded with my global studies major and just started to take a lot of classes, which again, sociology was part of that, but again, ended up meeting the requirement for, actually, I ended up with two majors, which was the global studies and the Latin American and Iberian studies. So after I graduated, I started working in the school systems, tutoring, managing programs, etc. Again, social work duties, interaction with county social workers. Like there was always a social work component around a lot that I was doing. But my career path, like I mentioned, was influenced by the educational part, being able to graduate there, and then also the fact that I started a family. And interactions in the experience of work experience, I'm sorry. And so in Santa Barbara, I stayed for a few years, and I really thought that my path was in education. And I began to start to network. Networking is key. I'll come back to that, with other administrators there, and thought that I should go back to school or administrative and, a degree in administration of education. And then I met somebody who was a social worker and ended up being a key mentor, who looked at me and said, "Why not social work?" And of course, at that point, I was like, "I don't know what that is." And no, I don't want to do case management. I want to make a bigger change. And so I did start the education program, but as life had it, I had to move to Northern California. So that's how I ended up here about 14 years ago. So again, education was always key. I was not able to immediately start grad school after my undergraduate degree, but I did stay connected in the field of social work. So when I moved up here and I was establishing myself, I started to, again, network and ended up getting an employment opportunity with other community-based agencies. I was able to manage some programs under Community Action Partnership in Sonoma County. And at that point, it was California Parenting Institute, now Child Parent Institute. And so always stayed really connected around agencies that had a very strong social service connection. And again, was able to interact with key people that just acknowledged that some of the skill bases that I had were related to social work. And what I mean by that is the social justice part, the desire to change program, the desire to affect change in the individual, to be able to strengthen them so that they can develop coping and or skill sets that would improve their current situation, meet them where they're at, acknowledging that they were the key path to their improvement, etc. So I kept working in the field, and I thought that that was going to be it. I never thought that school, honestly, I don't think I ever really enjoyed research and theory too much. So I tried my hardest not to go back to grad school and to proceed with my career path, but I needed more. And then there was a couple of instances on the personal level where family had medical issues, and I found myself navigating a lot of their medical needs, a lot of managing of the health systems that they were in, advocating for them, translating for them, which I know sometimes we find ourselves in, and just trying to identify, where that missing advocate that understood me, that looked like me, that could represent me and was. So I continued and I looked at the field of social work more seriously, after my mentors kept telling me to consider it. And back in 2010, the University of Southern California, USC, go Trojans, developed a distance learning program. In 2010, it was very new, and I know that people in the field questioned it, but it was a program that was certified by CSWE, and I have some links to explain that in a bit. So it was a university that had all the accreditations for a master's program, and I was able to do it at leisure of my home. So I was doing distance learning 11 years ago, managing, working full time, being a mom of 3, and managing some health issues that were hitting my immediate family. And that's honestly the first time that I got kind of catapulted into the medical social work field, when it was my first semester in grad school. And I knew that I wanted to be a social worker. At that point, I thought I was going to be in mental health and or child protective services, which are very well-known areas of social work. But when I was dealing with going into the emergency room with a child and not feeling like I was being heard, or not knowing the resources or what to do after a physician takes care of their role, with all due respect, not knowing what the next steps were, or how to call a primary provider, or whatever the additional follow-up scans and or treatment plan was not clear at that time to me. I didn't know who to go to. And I said, there's got to be somebody. And I remember there was a nurse who told me about a medical social worker. And I said, okay, what does that person do? And so he said, I don't know, but call them and they can help you. And that was the first time that I was introduced to that role. So I continued managing the personal life, going to grad school, thinking I was going to be a clinician, more of a therapist, but still wondering, okay, how can I affect change in a health system that is doing their best? But obviously there's gaps, right, that need to be met. So the program that I was a part of is the 2-year grad program. Fortunately, they worked with me, and I was able to graduate in 3 because I was managing personal life. And in 2013, I was able to graduate, and is the best decision that I've ever made. I will talk a little bit later about financing higher education, because that's a key part in anybody's career path. We have to be realistic in regards to how to plan for that. But my inspiration, pretty much what kept me going from undergrad to work field to managing life and having to move to Northern California, to returning to school and finishing school, was really a combination of my immediate needs, my immediate family needs, and knowing that there's got to be more people that needed this, and that we are not alone, and that I could help, and that through my own personal experiences, through that example, without sharing too much, I could help that change. So that's how I ended up there. I focused on Kaiser because of, again, of the personal reason. And I eventually did get hired on, worked per diem, balancing working at the local community health centers, and eventually am now there as a medical social worker and have finished my licensing and have the enough leisure to have a private practice on the side. So the one thing that I want to make clear is that social work covers a vast array of duties on a daily basis. Maybe I should say it that way. I can be a clinician. I can see somebody for solely mental health purposes, or I can be a medical social worker as I am in the hospital setting, managing in the emergency room, crisis, intervention, alerting families. We can be upstairs after somebody's had surgery, kind of balancing what their needs are so that they can be home and they can be safe. We help with older adults. We help with new mommies because sometimes, you know, after a baby's born, you're so excited for 9 months to have them, and then they're here, and it's kind of scary, and it's okay. And we help people work through that and make sure that all the resources and everything's in place for everybody to leave our hospital safely. Now in COVID world, we're there too. We're on site and we're providing connection to community resources, teaching people how to isolate, etc. So it's a lifespan that we look at. Any day in my life, I could be working with a COVID patient on moms and babies, or be called into the ED to work with a homeless patient who needs a shelter whatsoever, or help with the transfer to San Francisco because the individual needs acute, you know, higher than acute than the level of care that we can meet here locally. So it's a very rewarding field for me. I like being in the immediate acute crisis setting. I don't sometimes get to hear what happens after they leave us, but I know that my goal every day is to make the most of the impact and of the moment that I have with them. So that is what I have to share in regards to the path. I don't know if you guys have any questions and answers. I know on the next slide, I have a couple of connections because this time went by too fast. So if you are interested in social work, I do want to advocate that you look at the Council of Social Work Education and look at the National Association of Social Work Code of Ethics, because the Code of Ethics really tells you what we do on a daily basis. It talks about the social justice, it talks about equity, it talks about, you know, a lot of what really drives the field in different capacities. And then obviously, as you're looking to pursue the degree and eventually licensure, I want to make sure that everybody is well aware of fully accredited education institutes, because it does make a difference if you're looking at that next level, which again is licensure. Through licensure, it just formalizes you in the field. It allowed me to go into private practice. It allows me to be a supervisor at the hospital. So it just opens up, again, a variety of different roles that you can fill with your, you know, master's in social work degrees. The other important thing that I think drives a lot of our work is really connecting, and I'm not sure if you guys have heard, but I at least want to point you to this on the CDC. The CDC is very popular right now with COVID, but it is also a good place to have other information brought to you. A very big study that Kaiser did, and honestly is the reason why I wanted to be there, is the adverse childhood experiences. That's, you may already know that there is a correlation between some of the experiences that we have in growing up and what we feel and what we are as adults. So there's a lot of pertinent and great information there, why we are how we are with the experiences that we've been through. But I always like to bring them up because, to me, this should not stop us. I remember the first time that I saw a study survey, and I actually took it. My number was very high, and I said, oh man, there's no way that I'm going to be healthy in older age. But it just goes to show that sometimes things are out of our control at a younger age. But when things do not work out as one wishes, we got to understand that they're meant to grow from, and that something greater is coming. I'm here because I am, Latina, female, immigrant daughter, and I know that everything that maybe was a hardship and that I faced made me stronger for who I serve today. Um, and I'll leave it at that. I always love to put my contact information because, like I've mentioned, I don't never feel like these opportunities give us enough time. So if you have any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to call me. What you can do as a high school student right now, I mean, I know it's been said before, volunteer, join clubs. Again, COVID has limited a lot of those opportunities. Start reaching out to people. I know that there's mentor programs. If you can shadow, or maybe you can consult with somebody in a field that you like speak to them a little longer than the 30 minutes that I had, and really get into the depth of what that will look like for you, because everybody's path is personal, but it is achievable. And that's what I got. Any questions?
So, go ahead, Tracy. Thank you so much, Maria.
Yeah, thank you very much. I wanted to open up, if anyone has questions, you're welcome to put them in the chat. And thank you very much for sharing your story and how you got to where you are and what your job entails. I know that we are very grateful to have you in the hospital. It's a really important part of the team. There's a whole group of people in many different jobs, some of which you've heard about, including today, who make up the people who take care of patients in the hospital. And it's really important that we have all of those members of the team.
Oh, what is my favorite part of social work is asked by Miss Nicole. I love being able to hear everybody's story. I love being able to slow things down with the patient. In a hospital setting, everything is, especially in the emergency department when I was placed there, everything's quick, quick, quick. Let's go, let's go, let's go. I like to come in and just listen and just hold space and be able to say, okay, how can we make this better? To be present, to listen to the patient, to listen to their needs. I'm completely honest. Sometimes I don't, that's the joke. We don't have a magic wand to make it all better, but I'm here to help you try to identify resources, information to come up with the solution that makes sense and keeps you safe. That's the part that I like. And then obviously in sharing, gosh, I've met so many interesting people at work, and some stories are just very beautiful. So the personal touch.
We're almost out of time here. If I can, I'd like to just add one more brief question, which is, if there was, given COVID and everything that's going on right now and all of the challenges associated with it, if you were a high school student right now, is there a concrete actionable thing that you can think of that would help somebody move forward with the next step in their education?
Definitely.
You mentioned reaching out to mentors.
Yeah, I would say start looking at, on the internet, to look at different clubs, join different online forums, research, like I said, with the agencies, NASW, CSWE, if you're looking at licensure, even though it's years to come and things change, look at like the Board of Behavioral Sciences. It's like, for me, one of my most motivating part of my career path was keeping an eye on that goal. I understand that I'm here and I want to get there, but if I know what the steps are, even though the steps are still, I still got to get through undergrad and graduate, just visualizing that I'm going to get there helped. So if it's get to know more about it, get to know more about the different aspects of it, outreach, read up on it. If you have access to academic journals, look at those studies, because I want people thinking beyond just Wikipedia, with all due respect, and looking at, just more formal articles and or information about what we truly do in our field. And that's why even an email. I don't mind it. I can share and ask. I do have to adhere to confidentiality and HIPAA regulations, but other than that, like, a word of advice or anything else that I could do, I don't mind.
Maria, one question that was submitted through registration was, what is the need for bilingual professionals in this field? Well, bilingual social workers.
All I can say is that the year that I graduated, okay, first of all, postgraduate, pre-licensure, we have to complete a certain amount of hours. I never had to pay for any of my hours of supervision, and I was always paid for those hours. So it wasn't volunteered, which most of the time could be. So that was your gold. If you are bilingual, you are gold. And the first year after my graduation, I changed jobs, and it was so hard to do this because before I went to school, I had been in my job for 10 years. I'm a long hauler. Once I find my place, I like it. I make a good decision. Pero it was just like one thing after another, opportunity growth after opportunity growth. And even like now where I'm at, there's an opportunity for middle management and or the private practice. Like there is always a need for bilingual, anything in health field, honestly, whether it's social worker, RN, phlebotomist, MA, whatever. If you can hold on to your Spanish or learn Spanish, please do. Please do, because we do need it. There is a lot of bilingual people. Let me clarify that. There's a lot of bilingual people that we help, but it's different when you can have that moment, like I said, and you can treat and heal with your first language. So please do keep practicing el español.
Thank you. Luz, if you could just stick around right after a couple announcements, I can go back and share that. Yes.
I think we can go ahead and introduce next week's speaker and then
First,
let people go.
well, first, thank you so much, Maria.
Yes, thank you very much.
We really appreciate Maria took time she actually took a day out of her busy work to prepare this presentation, and she's been going back and forth with me, Futuro, and thank you so much, because it not only shows you're such a social worker. You not only care about your community, but you care about the future and our students. So we really appreciate that, and we really hope to have you back next year. Students, please stick around. We just have a couple more announcements, and then we'll be free, and we'll invite you back to next week. So muchas gracias, Maria.
Muchas gracias. All right, so next week we have Michelle, whose last name I do not know how to pronounce appropriately, so I will leave that to her next week, who is the Director of Performance Improvement at Kaiser Permanente. And she, interestingly, started her career as an engineer, which just goes to show that you don't have to major in a healthcare field or study a healthcare field in order to wind up working in healthcare.
All right, so I'm just going to quickly, oh, there we go. Please answer the poll. It'll help us get more information and feedback for the following, for next year's and future presentations. Oops, did I just, oh, there we go. Okay. And also, thank you so much, Tracy. Tracy is volunteering as well to be here today with all of you and moderate this amazing workshop that we had today. Please check us out next week. We're almost done with our Mi Futuros, which is really sad, but also really exciting. We have amazing speakers that will be wrapping it up on our last day as well. Make sure to follow us on Facebook. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram. And if you missed any videos, please check out our YouTube page. It's under Mi Futuro. You can share those videos, save them for when you're closer to your career, and even get some contact info, just like Maria provided today, in case you want to reach out to to any of the speakers privately. That's always a great way to build mentorship relationships. So now that I've ended the polling, thank you to everybody. I'll go ahead and stop the recording as well, and then I'll go ahead and share that flow chart for the person who requested it. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all for being here